Welcome back to Vic's Projects, everyone. If you remember from our last episode, we took a look at the back seats, and today, surprise, surprise, we're onto the front. So for the keen-eyed among you, if you think all the way back to some of those early episodes, a couple of years ago, we had completely different seats in the front, and now we've got new ones. So let's take a quick step back in time and find out what happened there. Well, we're here in the shed and it's about 9 PM on a Thursday. It's probably about 2 degrees outside, but thankfully in here it's as much as 3 degrees. Now, a few of you in the comments have noticed that these are not the original Jaguar Mark II seats. These are actually from a Jaguar XJ6. And although they are really nice seats, I'd quite like to get back to the original ones. And some came up nice and cheap on eBay. So why am I here at this time? Well, tomorrow morning someone is actually coming up to pick up these seats, and I haven't even tried to see if the new ones actually, or new old seats, actually fit in here, the original Jag seats. So tonight's task is to quickly whip these out, check the new seats work, and then get these ones sold. So now that we've got the original seats back in, what do we think? Well, I think I know why people change these seats for those XJ6 ones, because those XJ6 ones were so comfy, and these are just, well, I think they've had it anyway, they're old, but just not quite as comfortable. So in this episode we're going to do something about that. So now the seat's out on the bench, what are we going to do to help improve these seats? Well, clearly there's a bit of a leather cleanup that we need to do. I won't show you that on these seats, I'll show you how to do that on the rear seats. But actually for the comfort, underneath here is going to be Hessian horsehair, some old springs, stuff like that. We're going to replace that with some lovely new modern foam. So hopefully this base just lifts off like that. So let's turn it over and start taking it apart. Now while we wait for me to finish making a complete meal out of taking these seats apart, let's have a quick chat about the history of the Mark II. So in the early cars they had these sorts of seats with the picnic tables. However, in the later cars, so from I think it was 67 onwards, they actually went through a cost-cutting exercise. So we lost the 3.8 engine and the 2.4 and the 3.4 became known as the 240 and the 340 mod. Some of the cost-cutting exercise was we lost our lovely picnic tables. Also, all the seats, front and rear, went from leather to vinyl. The bumpers on the front and the rear got a bit thinner, and also there was a change to the front headlights, replacing those spots with vents. Now I think that's all the cost-cutting exercise and changes that happened. If anybody else knows of anything else, then stick it down in the comments. I'd love to hear about it, I'd love to know, and I'm sure some of you would like to know as well. So we'll head back to the shed and see how I'm getting on taking these seats apart. Well, that was easy enough taking this guy apart. Our base is in pretty good shape. Obviously going to get some new Hessian for the top here, and our seat was actually foam. It wasn't horsehair like I thought it might be. And this guy has absolutely had it. I mean, with these dimples and stuff, there's not much foam there anyway, and then when you put it down, you know, it might as well not be there at all. When you compare it to our new foams, this guy, there's loads in there, super tough. Let's try that there. There we go. Why am I doing that? Let's try the acid test. No. Oh, that's much better. It's actually like a seat. It's a little too springy though. So how can we go about tightening up this seat? Well, the original Hessian has got these pleat bits in it. Maybe if we remove those with a new bit, stretch it all nice and tight, that will probably hold up quite nice actually. However, these pleats are probably in here for a reason. As the whole thing flexes, is it just going to tear the Hessian and then the whole thing just go over time? Maybe, might be alright, might get away with it. But I think we're going to try. Wow. Oh, that stuff is old and horrible. I think we're going to try some webbing. So just put a couple of bits over there. Hopefully that will just help tie it all together and then give the Hessian a nice sort of base to sit on. We're here, we've got some, we might as well give it a go. Yeah, I think that's a bit better. It's not mind-blowingly different, but yeah, I think that is a lot better. So it's time to get some Hessian and finish up our job. Okay, it's a new day and we've had some packages arrive. So we've got our replacement Hessian and we've also got some replacement wadding. It's now time to start building the seat back up again. And where we had before some pleats in this Hessian, what we're going to do, because we've now got this webbing on here and it doesn't end up just doing this and having sort of point areas where it will all pull, which is why they put those pleats in for the first place. So with this webbing, I think we're going to be all right just to put a flat sheet, and it will help, you know, bind everything all back in together a bit nicer. Now that our new base is looking absolutely lovely and just about ready to go, you would be forgiven for wanting to throw the cover straight on it. But if you remember, all this fabric was all really very delicate. So what we're going to do is we're going to get some extra fabric and stick that on the back just to give it a bit more strength and a bit more life. Awesome, it's time to put our cover on. Did you really think that we were going to leave it there? That's right, if we're in here, we might as well go heated seats. So I think this kit was only like £20–30 off eBay, something like that, to do both the front seats, both the base and also the back. So we get a couple of these pads, some wiring, some rather horrible looking switches, we ain't going to use those. And it's pretty much as easy as stick that guy on there, wire him in, away we go. So, what are we waiting for? All right, I'll do it. Now I am petrified of this next step. We've got to take our 50-year-old leather and stretch it over these brand new seat cushions without tearing it. So I've been feeding and feeding this leather now for a couple of weeks, and we've just got to get in and do it. So our first task is, if you look at how the seats were originally done, this seam here was all glued. So we're going to have to glue these into this original cushion. Now we're not going to glue the front for obvious reasons because we've got the heat pad in there, so I'm just going to do each of the sides and then the front should be fine. Okay, wish me luck. finished the first seat base, I think there's only one way in which we can check this guy out. Whoa, that is so much better. Really comfy. The leather's nice and supple as well now. There's one small problem though. So clearly when we stuck this foam base down, I've stuck it down too far that way. So clearly we can't leave it like this. I'm now going to have to unpick most of this work and then re-stick that foam base down. Luckily this is all on the internet, so I can just do, and there we go. So how do we fix this one? Well, I had to unpick everything underneath. We then pulled off the foam from the Hessian top, then put a couple of marks on the Hessian where these pleats came down, and then we could realign our foam and get it all on sitting nice. It was worth it. We couldn't leave it as it is. Whilst I was here, I also chopped a little bit of foam off the corner here because the outside corners are quite round, whereas the inside corners are actually tapered in a bit. So hopefully that should all help it plump up a bit nicer. Well, it's a beautiful sunny day today, and there's no point having a heated bottom if we don't also have a heated back. So, time to take apart this guy. You know when you start a job thinking, this might not be a good idea? Well, it's easy enough to pull the seat apart, unscrew the picnic tables, a few poppers hold the back in place, and then you just start unpicking. Much like on the base, I put some leather patches where the splits were starting to show, and then smothered the whole of the inside with some saddle leather. But this is where the trouble really started. Trying to get the new foam to fit proved a real trial. Couple that with the complex way that the backs are put together and the old leather, and this descended into a real nightmare. I ended up reverting to using the original padding just because the new one, I couldn't get it to fit. I did, however, manage to keep the new surface foam. By this point, I'm probably on about the 5th attempt trying to get this to fit. It is a real nightmare. I mean, I'm starting to get areas where the leather is beginning to tear, just trying to get all the creases out. Oh my word. And the end result is, well, it's okay. We've got a bit of creasing here, which doesn't look that great, but the rest of it is okay. We did a much better job on the base. So I think when we come around to doing this seat, I'm just not going to take this rear apart. Actually, when we were taking it apart, I noticed just how it was made. I'm able actually to get those heat pads in without pulling the whole back seat apart. So I think we're going to leave the original on the drivers and just concentrate on making these seat bases as good as they can be. So speaking of which, it's the acid test, the bum test. Well, obviously this one's ruined. Wow, that is like night and day difference. To actually have some padding under here, so much more comfy. However, one thing I have noticed is being 6'3", and having a bit more padding here, I think it might make for a bit more of an interesting driving experience. But hey ho, I think that's the price we pay for comfort in one area. We might lose it in the other, but we'll see how we go with that. So I've still got the driver's seat to do. You've seen how it's done, so I'm not going to show that in this episode. So I think I'm going to call it here for that episode. In a future one, we'll have a look at wiring it all in. For those who've seen where we fitted the steering wheel, we've got a bit of work to do under here. So we'll tackle that at the same time as fitting all the switch gear and actually wiring this all in. So that's it for Vic's projects, and we'll see you next time on Vic's projects. Why can't I get my words out? Bye.